Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Viewers Discretion. I am your host, Joe Neerman, a.k.a. Good Logic. Hopefully my audio is working because I'm on like a whole new setting here. Let me make sure I'm not boomering. Let me be 100% sure. Let me be sure. Every time I move studios, I gotta worry. I think I'm good. Audio is okay. Yeah, I knew you guys would be. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Before we begin, because I want to just start with this recognition. I'm going to start with this recognition. Something I think that most of you have been watching me for a while know I already feel, but I need to express it for those of you who might be new or joining in or whatever. Okay? You all understand that the accused must be found not guilty unless and until the state is able to prove him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Let's take out the word for a second, and we'll come back to putting it in. But just understand, start with beyond the doubt. It's beyond the doubt. He's guilty. There's no doubt he's guilty. Why don't we put the word reasonable in there? Because it's not beyond the shadow of a doubt. It's not like, oh, if you can come up with any sort of theory to exculpate him, in that case, you must find him not guilty. No, but it's beyond a doubt. That's what it really is. It's beyond the doubt that he's guilty. We throw in the word reasonable, so you shouldn't say, well, maybe he got transported up to a mothership and some aliens came down here and shot them and then transported him back down and left him there. Like, that's not reasonable. But the point is, it's beyond a doubt that he did it. And if they can't prove that, well, like I said, the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt. But when we're saying beyond the reasonable doubt, what it means is something that's unreasonable to say that he did not do it. With that being said, by the time the state rested their case in chief, in my humble opinion, we were so far from that yardstick of the state having proven him guilty beyond a doubt, beyond a reasonable doubt. Hell, I don't think they proved him guilty beyond a preponderance of evidence. I think they made it less likely than likely that he killed him. By the time the state was done and said the state rests, I felt that justice under American law dictates that Alex Murdaugh should be found not guilty. Did he kill them? Did he not? I don't know. But what I did know is this. The state never proved his guilt at all. Did they prove his guilt in financial crimes? Possibly, yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of evidence about those financial crimes. A lot of evidence. Did they prove his guilt in the whole roadside assistance thing? Probably that too. Did they prove his guilt that guy unloaded 2 shotgun blasts into his own issue and a whole bunch of rifle rounds into his wife? No, not even close. Did they establish that he was likely there moments before he died? Yes. Did they establish that he was a liar? Yes. I think they proved that pretty much beyond a reasonable doubt. Beyond the reasonable doubt that moments before they died, he was there. And that he was a crook and he was a liar and that he lied to the police. In a just world, that should not be guilt beyond the reasonable doubt. It's not guilt beyond the doubt. People say, how do you not hear the bullets? He should have come running back there if he had left. That's before the defense brought in a single witness. Before they brought in one witness, that's where we should have been. All 12 people, whatever number of people they have this sitting in a jury, should have been like, this guy, we just can't convict him. He might have killed him, but we can't convict him. That's where we should have been. And I still believe that. And I believe that as they came forward, as the defense came forward with different witnesses, one guy coming in there saying the angle of the shots that we see from the rifle indicate that the shooter had to be far shorter than Alex Murdaugh. And I even said to Andrew Branco when he was here, I said, when they make it so short, it's going to hurt the guy's credibility. He would have had more credibility if he said the shooter had to be 5'8" or below. 5'4", I knew it was something that the state, if I was sitting there as an attorney, you sit there and you try to make a mockery out of it. What are you going to say next? Imagine if they had said the shooter had to be 3'2" or below. People would be snickering. That doesn't mean that's not what the forensics showed. But I mean, if that's what you're saying, no one's taking him seriously. That was my point. But again, the defense didn't have to prove any of this because I felt they had already won. That's to me where it was at. But just because that's where I felt we were at, and likely those of you watching may have felt the same way. Because I understand that like minds tend to be birds of a feather and flock together. So I understand that you're more likely to be watching me if you have a similar type of mindset about the American justice system than watching, let's say, Law and Crime. I get that. The problem is that in order for him to succeed in this case, he has to be decided guilty beyond reasonable doubt by 12 jurors who live in his county. And in his county, he's a very hated individual according to most reports. People don't like him, don't trust him, think he's the classic example of elitist privilege or white privilege or whatever kind of privilege, tons of privilege, wealth privilege, whatever it is, legacy privilege. This guy had all the privileges in the world and spat on common people. He's a loathsome individual. He's a terrible human being. He's a liar. He's a thief. He's a drug addict. He's every type of slob, and he's a lawyer. I mean, geez, he's definitely guilty of being a lawyer. And let's face it, I mean, you can say that as a joke, but the truth is most people don't like lawyers very much. You don't go into law school because you're like, oh, I want to be Mr. Popular. No. So he has all that going against him in the eyes of the jury. Not to mention the Mallory Beach story and all the ugliness of that. Ooh, God, this guy had everything going as far as like they're looking for a reason to convict him. And lying about being at the scene of the crime moments before the crime is committed, it's a bad look. It's a bad look. And they're probably not working at the same yardstick that that I am, or you likely are. So that's where he decides, you know what, I'm going to take the stand. The fact that he had to take the stand is an indication of his lack of confidence that this jury is going to look at this and say, hey, we don't feel the state proved their case to us. But that their own personal biases against him individually, the Murdaugh family, or their hatred of him because he's a douchebag. He's a terrible human being. He's a thief. He takes advantage of the weak and the impoverished and those who are far less fortunate than him. His own clients, his own friends. He's a bad person. He's a bad, bad person. And you have to understand this also, and something we lose track of. It's very satisfying to label him the murderer. If you hate the guy, and these two people are dead there, and you believe that, we know he's really capable at lying, it's very satisfying to say, hey, you know what? That dude killed his own family. He's just that evil. We know he's evil. We know he's a bad guy. He's that evil. He killed his own family. It's far more satisfying than saying we don't know who killed them. It's a more comforting way. Yeah, you know what? I decided Alex did it. To just have this mindset. I decided, you know what? I don't like him. He lied to the police. He lied about where he was. He pretended he wasn't there. He sat there lying to them in interview after interview. His family is this privileged bunch. He's got his boats. He's killing young girls and stealing from orphans, and he's a terrible human being, and yeah, he was there and he lied about it. Obviously, he's the killer. It's a very easy thing to do. It's much easier to do that. Because then you feel like we caught the bad guy, hooray, let's move on to the next one. It's very easy. It's a much simpler way to go through life. So for all these reasons, I think Alex was concerned that even though the state sucked at meeting its burden of proving him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, that they had to put him up there on the stand for him to basically get up there and tell his story if he was going to have any chance of winning here. That's clearly what they thought. I don't know if that's what his attorneys thought. I don't know if his attorneys said he should get up there. I saw one report saying it was against the advice of counsel. That's what he felt. That's what he thought. He's certainly not a novice to legal proceedings, so if that's his determination, it was not like a crazy rookie mistake. So tonight and I think that once he takes the stand, put everything back on the back burner. When he takes the stand and the jury is deliberating, I have a hard time believing that anything is going to be more important to them than their takeaway from Alex on the stand. To me, I think that that's the most important thing. This is not a situation where you have with Kyle Rittenhouse where it's like, we don't know the facts, whatever. No, we're trying to solve, this is a mystery. And I think that's kind of sad that we have a case that the police seem to really have a lot of holes left in, and that left for the jury to try and solve this whodunit. That's not the way a judicial system is supposed to operate, but that is what it is where we're at. And that being the case, you sort of have to look at this and say to yourself, if you're sitting there in the jury, I mean, seriously, all the experts come up there and say blah, 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 blah. The reason that you're making this pitch to the jury is because you feel as if they're not being swayed by experts so much as their feelings about Alex. That is what you're pitching to. Alex Murdaugh clearly believes that the best way for him to win is take the stand. That means he believes this is not a matter of constitutionalists who are sitting here doing assessment. Did the state prove him guilty beyond reasonable doubt? He's trying to pitch to the people who hate him and say, hey, whatever you think about me, I'm not as terrible as you think I am, and I would never kill my family. And this is what happened. That's what he's pitching to. So I think it's an important thing to sort of look at how effective was he at that? How good was he? And so that's why I sort of want to look through certain key moments of his testimony and in the cross-examination. And I also want to look at the Fifth and Sixth Amendment violations that were alleged on Friday by the defense. And I know that my takeaway on it was a little bit different from Emily Baker's. I got to see some of her take on it. She thought she was far more tolerant of the judge's ruling. And I'm gonna look at the law a little bit with you and really break down, because what happens is what you have to realize is that both she and I and others who are covering the trial, we're watching a lot of things that happen, and there's a 10-minute window of testimony which arouses both of these Fifth and Sixth Amendment violations. And we're going to look at that and break that question and answer period down a little bit more minutely so we can better understand what's happening. Is this a violation? Is it not a violation under a more of a laboratory type of setting rather than off the cuff? What did he say? I don't remember what he said. The way the appellate court may look at it, because they're going to have the opportunity to sort of look back at this and see, what did he say? What did Waters ask him? How did he respond? How did he word it? What does that mean? How did the judge respond? Blah, blah, blah. And really break it down to understand what exactly was the potential Fifth Amendment violation? What was the potential Sixth Amendment violation? Those two issues are actually surprisingly much closer. They seem to almost get glommed together. And I actually had to sit there parsing out my brain. We went from a Fifth Amendment violation to a Sixth Amendment violation, and the areas where we crossed were very close. They're very close. And it's because of the way Waters worded some certain questions, and it's also because of a little bit of ambiguity in the answers that Alex Murdaugh gave. So I'm going to give you my assessment on that as we look through that 10-minute period together and watch the back and forth. I'm going to point out to you, boom, that's the moment there. Boom, this statement here, what he's saying here, the impact this has on the Fifth and Sixth Amendment. So that's what I'd like to do with you so we can better understand whether or not there's a strong possibility that he'll win on a Fifth or Sixth Amendment. Let's say stronger than most cases, because if you're appealing, you're always starting with one foot in the hole. And sometimes your claims seem to have a little bit more strength to them than others. So I want to assess whether or not how egregious the judge's decisions were in denying both of those claims. And that's the game plan here. So that's what I plan on doing tonight. I will be streaming the trial tomorrow, starting at 9:30 a.m. I'm going to be setting up links right after I finish the stream. I already have the thumbnail ready to go, so I should be setting up like 10 minutes after I'm done here. I also will be streaming, God willing, on Tuesday. That's the plan. I expect that Nick Ricada is going to be back on Wednesday, and he'll be streaming at that point. I would appreciate if you can like and subscribe here, so this way you're able to find me easier and help a poor young man out. Not so young man. I'm not a young man anymore. I'm getting older every day. I don't know about you. Every day, it's like consistently getting older. So if you can sub up and help me get to $100,000, $100,000 subs. Every one of you is $1. 100,000 subs. I would be much obliged. Before I do that, let me get to some super chats here. Leighton Tinsley. Joe, but doesn't reasonable doubt mean more likely than not that he committed the crime? No. It doesn't mean that, Lita. It doesn't mean that at all. That's preponderance of evidence. Beyond reasonable doubt is supposed to be much, much higher than preponderance of evidence means more than 50-50. Beyond reasonable doubt means it really starts with it's a beyond a doubt that he did it. There's no doubt that he did it. But if you say that to say like beyond the shadow of a doubt, that there's absolutely no doubt, that's not the standard. What it really means is it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. Don't bring in in other words, don't say, well, we have a doubt because I can come up with an unreasonable scenario that would explain why now I have a doubt. That's a way I can create a doubt. So it's like, no, don't do that. Don't go that far because that's being unreasonable. It's beyond reasonable doubt. So most people think of it as being like, 95, 97, 98%. Whereas preponderance of evidence is literally 50.00001% that he did it. That's the difference. That's more likely than not. It's much higher. It's supposed to be much higher for good reason. We're taking away the rest of his life. This is not money. That's where you have in a civil case, you have a preponderance of evidence. The plaintiff has to show it's more likely than not that he's entitled to the money. That's where you have the more likely than not standards, which we call preponderance of the evidence. Thanks for the super sticker, Catherine. I appreciate that. Very thoughtful. Let's go. Okay, going live then. What? Did I go live? Did I not go live? I didn't go live. I'm gonna have people getting mad at me. I started the chat now. Don't yell at me. I'm old. I'm sorry. I'm leaving right in the chat there. I'm sorry. My locals chat is mad at me that I didn't start a live chat. I have a locals channel. It's goodlogic.locals.com where people have to follow me, and I have videos that I make, and I talk a little bit more there about humanity's life, understanding ourselves and the world around us, and a little bit about law. And I try to open up the chat. So I have a side chat that I open up there for my redheaded kids. I just got a rumble rant here from Viola Pride saying, hey, Boomer, open up locals, please. Diggers got their sticks ready. Yeah, I have some nicknames for my locals people like diggers or redheads, but those are inside jokes. Anyway, so that's all corrected. You can all do your thing in there. I want to start by just looking at the opening here. If you're Alex Murdaugh, and I want to show you just how bad an uphill battle this guy has, I'm going to do something that I never do. I'm going to let you look at the chat. Look at the chat at this part of the testimony when he first takes the stand. Here's what I question. Do they think they can get him on the financial crimes? They want the guarantee of railroading him on the murder. What gives? Do they have him dead to rights on anything? I think they're positive they have him on the financial crimes. I think it's a feather in their in Creighton Waters' cap if you can get him on the murder. I think you have to realize he's a big fish. He's like a Kennedy, like the Murdochs are like the Kennedys of South Carolina. So getting him on murder is a big thing. Getting him on murder is a big thing. It's a career maker for Creighton Waters. So I want you to be able to look at this chat here because this chat is really interesting. There's one part of this chat that I want to just sort of focus on here. But this is when he first starts testifying.
I did lie to them.
Let's go back a little bit.
I was.
We're 7.
Very opening of his testimony. Takes a stand. First question's out of the gate.
Mr. Murdoch, is that you on the kennel video at
Whoops.
8:40?
It's a little earlier.
No. I did.
Did you take this gun or shoot your...
Sorry about that.
Mr. Murdoch, on June 7th, 2021, did you take this gun or any gun like it and shoot your son Paul in the chest in the feed room at your property off Moselle Road?
No, I did not.
It's a powerful way
Mr. Murdoch, did you take this gun or any gun like it and blow your son's brains out on June 7th or any day or any time?
No, I did not.
Mr. Murdoch, did you take a 300 blackout such as this and fire it into your wife Maggie's leg, torso, or any part of her body?
No, I did not.
Did you shoot a 300 blackout into her head, causing her death?
Mr. Griffin, I didn't shoot my wife or my son anytime.
Now,
Ever.
if you look at the chat there, I don't know if you can catch it because it's going so fast. It's hard to catch it. But look at this. Body language 101. Yes, you did. OMG. Lies, lies, lies. And it's all like that. All these body language experts in the chat, all looking at him nodding, and he is nodding, all looking at him nodding and saying, oh, yeah, we learned body language. I've watched the body language experts. I can tell. I know that he's lying. I know that he's lying. Look at him. He's such a big fat liar. His pants are on fire there. Oh my gosh, someone should call the fire department before the whole place goes up in flames from his pants. That's what they're all saying there. It's crazy. And he is nodding. Look, when he's doing this.
Your wife Maggie.
But he's nodding the entire time.
Torso,
he's
or any part of her
shaking.
body.
No, I did not.
Did you
He's still shaking,
shoot
nodding now.
a 300 blackout into her head, causing her death?
Mr. Griffin, I didn't shoot my wife or my son anytime.
See, even now he's shaking. His head is like one of those bobblehead things. And they're sitting there saying oh, I'm a body language expert. I know what this means. He's saying no, but shaking his head yes. This is what he's dealing with. This is what he's dealing with. I mean, think about this for a second. This is what he's dealing with. These Grace experts have come out there oh, look, he's shaking his head yes as he's saying no. They don't, but they're such experts, they don't notice that the entire time he's literally on the stand shaking. This is what he's dealing with. Ack. I didn't mean to do that.
Her body.
No, I did not.
And then he comes out and admits that he was at the kennels.
A 300 blackout.
But look at that chat. Wow, liar, liar. Throwing up
Mr.
volume.
Griffin, I didn't shoot my wife or my son anytime. Ever.
I mean, he's hated. It's more interesting watching the chat almost than watching him for me, because I'm just wow. Narcissist, wowza.
Mr. Murdoch, is that you?
He says no, but shaking his head
On
yes.
the kennel video at 8:44
Nodding yes,
p.m. on
lies,
June 7th,
liar.
The night Maggie and Paul were murdered.
It
Look at that. He even said
Were you
liar,
in
liar,
fact at
pants
the
on
kennels
fire.
at
Look at this one
8:44
right here.
p.m. on the night Maggie and Paul were murdered.
See
I
that?
was.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Did you lie to Sled Agent Owen and Deputy Laura Rutland on the night of June 7th and told them that you stayed at the house after dinner?
I did lie to them.
Did you lie to Agent Owen and Agent Croft on the follow-up interview on June 10th
It's unbelievable.
that the last time you saw Maggie and Paul
Look at this.
was at dinner?
Not
did
crying
lie to
yet.
him.
Oh, look at this.
And in the interview,
Oh, he's
you
not
know,
even
it's not-
crying. Can you believe he's not crying?
tell
Can you
Agent
believe
Owen
he's not crying
and
in the
Agent
first
Croft?
in the first half second of when his testimony starts? Can you believe? What a liar. I can't believe he's not crying. Oh my gosh. Now, is this guy a professional liar? Yes. Did he lie for the last 10, 15 years? Maybe 30 years. Yes. But it's like before he's even said like a word, it's like, you know, it's as what's his face says, Hobson's choice. It's like, you know, you want death by phaser, death by hanging, death by quartering, death by stoning, death by beheading. We're completely open-minded here. We're very open-minded here how we're going to treat you. It's unbelievable. Yeah, and it's true. And when he cries, he's an actor. When he cries, he's an actor. Let me see where he is crying. Let me see if I can find where he's crying here. Let's see how the chat reacted to him crying. Is this here? Where is he crying? Let me see where he's crying. I'm going to try and find it. When he had like there's a moment during his trial, his direct testimony where he's like a DNA factory. It's just like his clothing, it gets more DNA than the crime scene ever got.
The front entrance, and you come in from the left and you go just past it.
It comes when
Go on
he's
the right.
describing finding the bodies that he gets particularly emotional in a way that's disturbing and also gross. I think this is it. This looks like. Yeah, there we go. Let's see how they react to his crying. Let's watch that. I bet they're not showing much love. I'm predicting. I haven't looked at this part on Law and Crime. I'm predicting there's not much sympathy. Let me see what's going on here. We get a hung jury. Does that mean the state will be able to bring financial stuff in the next retrial, or will it be the judge's discretion? It'll be judge's discretion. Having a body language expert analyze people for legal purposes like hiring a court wizard. Utter quackery. Humans are too complex for simplistic readings. Yep. Average IQ of the LLC is 60. Maybe for another day. You want competent lawyers, but it's way better to have competent lawyers who's friends with the prosecutor. On the civil side, that's true. On the civil side, you also want someone plugged in. Oh. Yeah. No, let's watch the chat flow here. We'll see if there's a little bit more of a mix. Because when he first came out there, they're killing him. And the only reason I care about this is because I think to myself, like, is this what the jury is like? I mean, we know how hated his family is down there. Is this what the jury is like when he's talking? Who knows?
And now, like, did you drive down to the kennels?
Back. Come on. Stop being so beta. Yeah, I'm experiencing interruptions. What do you
In
think?
your Suburban?
I'm just focusing on the chat here.
I did.
What'd you see?
Saw what y'all have seen pictures of.
Guilty, guilty, boom. So heartless. Fake confession. bad acting. That's bad acting? Really? Really? Look, I'm going to say this. Look, you can say whatever you want, that you don't believe him, you think he's faking, whatever. Nothing here reads to me remotely fake. Do I know he's a liar? Yes. If anyone can fool me, I think it's probably Alex Murdaugh. Because I know this guy's probably really good at lying. He's probably really good at it. But some people are so good at it, it's like you can't tell when they're lying. They just like they have like something in their brain they can shut on and off to like basically lie the same and not have any tells to them. Nobody there in the chat is reading him as lying. They just know that we don't believe you, so you must be lying. But not that, oh, it actually looks fake to me. Crocodile tear. Oh my, crocodile tears, alligator tears. I don't even think they know what that expression means. I don't think that expression means what people think it means. Crocodile tears. I don't think it means fake tears. No, okay, it's an insincere display of grief. Crocodile tears. All right, there we go. Fake. Bad acting. Cry. No tears. Someone said no tears. Are you kidding me? It's like snot running out of his face.
Yeah, I went to,
Then it's like they're not reading in his expression anything. It's just that they decided he's not telling the truth, so it must be fake. But stop it. Stop pretending that this is like, that this doesn't come across as being genuine. I mean, come on. This seems so utterly genuine. And this is what he's dealing with. This is why he took the stand, because so many people hate him. Law and Crime Crew shocked that people who are facing unnatural levels of stress and despair react differently than characters in TV shows and movies. It's true. Wait, Ian won an award? Sincere question. Yes, he did. Congratulations to my good friend Ian Runkle, who won a Gundy Award. He did. He was nominated for Best Advocate for Second Amendment rights and Best New Creator, and he won Best New Creator. He really wanted the other one. He wanted the Second Amendment Spokesperson Award, but he did win Best New Creator. So congratulations. Well done. Well earned. Well earned indeed. He's an awesome dude. So, Best New Creator. There you go. My good friend. Congratulations, Ian Runkle. It's called emotional reasoning. What's called emotional reasoning? I don't know what that means, Fluffer Boy. I don't know what that means. Anyway, so I thought that this was an interesting thing, and it lets you get a little bit of a feel as, you know, those of you who are confident that, oh yeah, he's definitely going to be acquitted here. Law and Crime chat makes me really question that. This is before he came under the fire from Creighton Waters, who they view as like, you know, some heroic figure rather than being the slimeball that he is. He's even here getting his whole pants on fire. These people are crazy. Fake. This goes on and on. %of law and chat voted for Biden. Hashtag fact. I don't buy his act at all. I think he's probably guilty. The state still needs to prove it. The principle matters more than anything else. And I you know what? I can respect this. Black Cat. I could totally respect this. And look, I don't have any more facts than you do. I walked into this thinking he probably did it. It was really through the course of the state's case that I started questioning that more and more and more, as one person after another who was being put up on the stand by the state was testifying about how deeply he loved his wife and son. And it made me question all the more, you have no motive here. Well, if someone loves them that deeply, he needs to have a ton of motive to overcome that. a ton of motive. What would it take to make you kill your own wife and son? You want to say that you assume that his relationship with his wife is not as hunky-dory as everyone thinks it is? Okay, fine. I guess, some people, portray a healthier marriage than they actually have. But, bring on the DUI guy so we can figure out what really happened. But, like, when the guy's blowing away his own son, you need to tell me, ask yourself, what would it take for you to kill your own son? What would be the circumstances? You'd be like, I am going to voluntarily decide to blow the brains out of my own child. And if you think that it's like something that's common, I mean, come on. I mean, if the guy's a liar and a drug addict, I mean, that's very different from blowing the brains out of your own child with no foreseeable motive. But putting that aside for a second, and putting aside the forensics, if you don't trust the forensics guy, you think that he's crazy because he came up with numbers, 5'4" that you don't believe. The one thing that this is, I can't get my head around, I can't even understand, is the testimony from Micah Sturgis, Sturgis, Sturgis. He was the forensic expert who went through the timeline with the phones. And not only did he show that when the shooting is all happening, or at or around that time is when we're seeing him walk 283 steps, that at the same time, Maggie's phone is going 59 steps. Like, how are they going different numbers of steps? It's hard to understand. She's dead. And it gets worse. It gets worse for the state because then there are buttons that we know buttons are being pressed and someone is manipulating her phone at a point in time where he is literally 3/4 of a mile from that she's dead and he's literally 3/4 of a mile from her phone. This does not make sense. This makes no sense at all. So you have to ask yourself, I mean, that's a digital alibi. How does the state, if he did it, how did he figure out how to create this alibi? And that's what brings me back to square one. Like, I can't even imagine how he could have done it. The only way possible for Alex to have committed this murder, the only way physically possible, if he had all the motive in the world, if killing them meant that he would be a billionaire and that everyone who had a claim against him would drop dead and he would live scot-free off of the drug problems and everything. If you told me that somehow there was some sort of magical karma type of deal happening here, that he had that level motive to blow the brains out of his own son's head, even if he had that motive, you have to ask yourself, how did he do this magic trick with the phones? How could he have done it? And when we're getting to a point in time where it's not just a matter of like, do we reach reasonable doubt, but can we even figure out how it's physically possible for him to have done it? Can we even figure that how it's physically possible for him to be in two places at one time? Because someone is doing something with the phone. The only possible way to do it, the only possible way for him to have done this is if he had an accomplice who took the phone. Either that, or we trained some chicken there on the farm to take her phone and run with it in one direction while he's going in another direction. And some chicken basically hits some button on the phone when he's far enough away. Literally, that's where we're at here. Because there's no way this could have happened the way it did. Digitally, it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I started at a place where I was like, he probably did it, but I want to see if the state can prove it. And I got to a place where I'm like, I can't even imagine how he could have done it, much less figure out what the hell his motive was. And the guy needed a hell of a lot of motive. A lot of motive. Just doesn't add up to me. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe he trained the dog to do it. I mean, think of where we're at here. He shoved the phone in the dog's mouth and said, "Go, Bubba, go. Go, Bubba, go." Somehow got it back into the kennel at some point. We don't know how he got rid of the dirty clothing. We forgot all about that problem, about the fact that he has, like, messy clothing, like, everywhere. No idea where that went. Can't figure out where he hid the guns. But sure. Okay. I mean, think of where we're at here. There is so many holes in this story that it's like, it's hard to even understand how he did it. I can't even understand it anymore. It's like, I think to myself, it's like, if you don't know anything about Alex's other history, if you don't know anything about the story leading up to the day that they were killed, you would think anyone who thought he killed them is crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you take out the whole thing with the boat accident, the Mallory Beach thing, or whatever, and you just start, we don't have any of that background, don't know anything about the financials, don't know anything about what happened with everything like that, and you just fixate on this night in question, and someone came to you and said, Alex Murdaugh, and no one knows anything, and let's say he had never stolen any of this money from anyone. He was not the crook. Would anyone think for a second that this guy actually committed these murders? Would you think for a second that he did it? Of course not. No one would. He wouldn't even be charged. Congratulations on your great coverage during Noah's absence. You proved very good at what you do, Joe. On your way to 100K. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Marty McFly. And I'll never call you Yella. I think most of the people who think he's guilty have been watching TV programs on the murder scandals and are considering a lot of information that hasn't been admitted in the trial. Which information, though? Because I started watching some of these podcasts because I want to see what... I'm at a point here where I've started becoming so much more... The digital evidence is really what sent me over the edge, where I'm like, I don't even understand how he could have done it. And I can't even figure out how he could have done it. Like, if I hated him, and I want to, like, now figure out, okay, how did he do it? And just knock away all the holes. I'm trying to figure out, like, something logical to explain this problem when I'm trying to pitch this to someone to convince them. And I can't figure out how to. It's like a mystery. It's almost like some sort of murder mystery. Like, where it's like, I'm expecting I need Sherlock Holmes to figure out, oh, yeah, because he was experienced with Peruvian gas, and he knew how to make the phone float and go off into, like, the thing, and, like, there's some sort of, like, I don't know. I need, like, Agatha Christie here to walk me through how he managed to do this murder and convince, and yet leave this trail of evidence that looks like it exonerates. That's where I'm at. Like, I don't know how to get around this exonerating evidence, so I'm trying to figure it out. Like, it's a mystery. You're watching True Hidden Crime YouTuber. The state quoted him on cross and covers the wild family history, shame, cover-ups, and past violent behavior. Put a bounce in the hospital, but no jury, please. Camp Breedman says, just got home from MSG. Rangers won 5-2. Turn my TV on to find you're streaming. That's true, I am. That's what I call a win-win. Smash that like button, people. Smash it. Smash it like it's Paul's. No, I'm not going to make a joke about the dead. Hey, slow down, big guy. It was a chicken. It was a chicken. Not a chicken. All right. Anyway, so that's that. I can't go, like, as long as I normally would tonight, because I am going to be streaming. Like, at 9:30 in the morning, I need to set my stream up, get my beauty sleep, and all that other good stuff. So I'm not going to be able to, like, run for as long as I normally would. And that's why I really want to get to this 10-minute window here. But I just wanted to share with you some of the thoughts as to what he's dealing with here, that part of the testimony where it's like, even while he's breaking down crying, I mean, look at that chat there. That chat is just brutal. They're just brutal. It's like, filled with Creighton water files. Joe already gave out the answer. He is the Flash. That would explain it. That would explain it. All right. So where was that? This is the part I want to get to. Okay. On Friday, there was claims by the defense about both the Fifth and Sixth Amendment violations. And this is really the course of one 10-minute exchange. 10 minutes of trial where both of these things come up. And it's very blurry, and it's very confusing, and it's a little bit legally complex. So I want to try and walk you through that so you can better understand what the legal issues are, what the lawyers are arguing about, a little bit more about Doyle v. Ohio, and help you understand what's actually happening in the trial and why there's this disagreement and the strength or potential merit of an appeal if he ends up losing this trial. And it all starts at this section here. Now I don't care about the chat anymore. I want to focus on the back and forth questioning here, and we have to listen very, very carefully. I did think it was funny when I was watching that, where I was like, oh, look, he's nodding. Oh, he's nodding. Clearly, I'm a behavioral expert. And they're totally ignoring the fact that the dude is like shaking the way we're on the stand the entire time, and they're reading that as him nodding. I'm like, idiots. But, okay, here we go.
Convinced. Maggie.
I think I gotta go slower here. Yeah. So they were just talking about the pills. And Crane Waters had just asked him on cross who knew about the pills. When we get to this point here. And then, by the way, this lets you know how much homework I do, because I actually was like searching through, like, where was this part? Where was that part? This was not easy to find. But you're worth it.
That I got those pills in anticipation of the eye surgery, but that I never took them, so that she would not worry that I was, once again.
We're at 207.03, and by the time we get to 217, we're going to have potentially two Bill of Rights violations by the prosecutor.
So you're talking about, now you're claiming that about the time in May, that Paul talked to Maggie and convinced her of that? Or are you talking about a different time?
I'm not claiming that, Mr. Waters. That's a fact. This is what happened.
This is an important thing here. This is an important thing because he's about to be accused of making up stories, and he's going to get defensive about that. And you have to listen carefully to what Alex says, because this becomes important.
We're hearing that now, correct?
We're hearing that now, implying, this is the first time we're hearing it. And that rubs Alex the wrong way. He's like, I'm tired of you framing everything as if I'm making something up for the first time now. And listen to what he says, because it's important. This is something that both the prosecution, assuming he gets convicted on any level here, both the prosecution and the defense will be focusing on this language that comes up right here.
Hearing what now?
What you just said.
Well, you just asked me this. Mr. Waters, you keep making an issue about first time you hearing these things. When I got arrested and I went to jail, we began reaching out to you to talk to you about all of these things, to try to tell you everything that I'd done, to give you all these details to help y'all go through these financial things. And up until the time that y'all charged me with murdering my wife and child, you would never give Jim Griffin a response to our invitations to sit down and meet with you.
Did you hear what he said there? We're going to listen to this one more time, because this is really very, very critical to the validity, legitimacy, and the strength of their claim. Because the question is, with this statement, what, if anything, did he open up for the state to ask? Let's look at this one more time. We have to. I know that I'm drilling on this, but it's very important, because the question is, what is he claiming? Is he claiming that he came forward specifically to talk about the financials? Or is he claiming, because this is in the context, and now in the context, what just happened leading up to this? Creighton Waters says, oh, this is another new thing that you're telling us for the first time here. And what he says is, I came forward to talk to you about the financials many times up until after I was arrested. After I was arrested, and that's a key thing, because opening up your mouth after you're arrested, it serves as a little bit of it serves as a waiver of your Fifth Amendment rights. He's opening up because he was in a timeline sequence of events. He's arrested for his financial crimes and later charged with murder. So he basically is saying, after I was arrested, I came forward to open up and talk to you about the financials because I knew that's the only way I can get this thing to go away. That's the only way I can get this to go away. Let's hear it one more time. We'll go back to like 207. I think it was 207.03 was where it was, right?
Are you talking about the time in May that Paul talked to Maggie and convinced her of that? Or are you talking about a different time?
I'm not claiming that, Mr. Waters. That's a fact. This is what happened.
All right. We're hearing that now, correct?
Hearing what now?
What you just said.
Well, you just
Those of you who are rating from Aussie, first of all, you're the coolest Aussie. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. What we're watching now is what I'm identifying as being the key part of testimony, which is going to turn as to whether or not there was a Fifth or Sixth Amendment violations. And both of them will spawn from this dialogue that comes here to a degree. It starts with the Fifth Amendment issue. And the nature of the dialogue here is that, you know, he just said, this is something that I talked to you about before. He's like, oh, this is a new thing. And he says, you keep trying to frame things as being new. And he tries to take a position that, you know, he's frustrated. You could tell Alex is frustrated with the fact that Creighton Waters is pretending that he's telling all these new stories that no one heard before. And he's about to go on the offensive and basically say, no. We tried coming to you. But you have to listen carefully to what it is that he says he tried coming to them about. Because this is a key point here, which both the state and defense will be arguing about on appeals if he ends up losing this trial.
just asked me this. Mr. Waters, you keep making the issue about first time you hearing these things. When I got arrested and I went to jail, we began reaching out to you to talk to you about all of these things, to try to tell you everything that I'd done, to give you all these details to help y'all go through these financial things. And up until the time that y'all charged me with murdering my wife and child, you would never give Jim Griffin a response to our invitations to sit down and meet with you.
So it sounds as if he's fixating. It sounds as if he's fixating on sharing financial information. Like, I was willing to come forward and talk to you about all these financials. That's how I understand it. But there is a little bit of a vague language in there if you want to try and side with the judge and the state, which the appellate court may try to latch onto, where he says, well, I want to try and come forward and talk to you about all these things. And then he goes into where I want to talk to you about the financials. And when he's saying all these things, that could be read as being a little bit broad. I don't think it should be, because I think he qualifies that in the follow-up statement. In my opinion, if I was a judge looking at this, I would say when he's saying all these things, he doesn't mean the stuff about the kennels. He doesn't mean the stuff about what he told his attorneys or whatever. He's specifically now talking about that when, you're trying to pretend that I never came forward. I did try to come forward on the financials, and we tried coming forward to you, and you didn't want to hear from us. And the only time we heard from you is when you're serving me with an indictment on the murder charges. So stop pretending that we never came forward with anything. I was willing to be open with you about the financials. That's how I understand it. But to be fair, and I need to be fair and open with you, I'm so frustrated with the judge that it is possible that my interpretation is a little bit tilted out of anger and frustration towards this prosecutor and this judge. And that in that sense, on reading his language here, I am giving him too much of the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to listen to it with you one more time and ask whether this could fairly be broken down that he says, I came forward to talk to you about the kennels and the murder or anything besides the financials with the way he worded this. I'm sorry for belaboring this point, but it's very critical in determining, for legal reasons, as we're going to do our assessment, determining whether or not his Fifth and Sixth Amendment rights are being trampled on.
Well, you just asked me this. Mr. Ward, if you keep making the issue about first time you hearing these things,
You keep making the issue about the first time you're hearing these things.
when I got arrested and I went to jail,
What is these things? That's the question. These things could mean the financials, it could mean the kennels, it could mean anything, because he's made a big deal about all of these things. Creighton Waters has made a big deal about all these things. So it could be that he's like, no. It could be interpreted by the jury. It could fairly, the judge, I would think it's possible, could say that he's trying to say, you keep trying to make the jury think I never came forward about the kennels before, but you didn't want to hear from me. Now, he does qualify it right here by saying about the whole that he's talking about the financials, but that statement taken individually could seem like something that he's refuting Creighton Waters about, that claiming that he came forward about the kennels and that Creighton Waters has a right to charge in on that and try and call him out on that.
we began reaching out to you to talk to you about all of these things, to try to tell you
All of these
everything that I'd
things.
done to give you.
Everything that I'd done. What does he mean when he said that? What will a jury hear? There's a jury here that he's saying all these things, including the kennel. I tried telling you about that I was at the kennel. You didn't want to hear from me. Or does that become not about that at all, but purely about financials, because he finishes up with this?
You all these details to help y'all go through these financial things, and up until the time that y'all charged me with murdering my wife and child, you would never give Jim Griffin a response to our invitations to sit down and meet with you.
So that soliloquy there, I think, is likely to be dissected at some point by an appellate court. Because you could see how if you cut it off at a certain point there, it does seem like he's saying, we did try to come forward to talk to you about all of these things. And then he ties it into the financials, in which case, if he just tried coming forward about the financials, this follow-up here by Creighton Waters, look where Creighton Waters goes with this now.
So you're telling me I never responded to Jim Griffin? Is that what you're saying here today?
I'm telling you,
Are you saying that you ever before yesterday reached out to anyone through yourself or through your attorneys and reached out to anyone in law enforcement or the prosecution and told them the story about the kennels? Are you telling me that?
All of a sudden now he's fixating on the kennels. It's clear that he definitely was talking about financials. It was not clear in his statement that he was talking about the kennels. Claiming that he came forward about the kennels. The reason this is important is because if he's not talking about the kennels, if he's talking exclusively about the financials, in that case, it seems as if he's pushing a duty on Alex to come forward and talk to him about the kennels after he's been arrested, in theory.
what I'm telling you,
Answer my
Mr.
question
Waters,
first, please, sir. Answer my question first. Did you ever reach out to anyone in law enforcement or the prosecution and tell that story that you told this jury yesterday about the kennels before yesterday?
did I ever reach out to law enforcement?
They're talking at the defense table now about whether or not they should be objecting. That's what Harpootlian is talking to him about, I suspect.
To say, I want to tell you about the kennels? No, sir, I didn't.
And then you see him get up. Harpootlian is like, there's a Fifth Amendment thing, get up.
Not. What
This is
I,
the Fifth Amendment line.
pardon?
This questioning about him volunteering information on these charges violates his Fifth Amendment rights, and we strongly object. Any more, we have to make a motion.
And now he's saying, he said he brought it up. That's his response, and the objection's overruled. Now, if he started that off in saying, you keep saying I never came to you about anything. When it comes to the financials, I came forward about that to you. And he just said it like that. I think he has more of an airtight claim to say that going down this whole thing about a duty to come forward about the kennels is a Fifth Amendment violation. Even, and by the way, even without that, but, well, let's go a little further.
Overruled.
What I did was, so,
Answer my question first,
Your Honor,
sir.
for the record, he did not bring it, he was talking about financial
Sit down,
stuff.
Mr. Griffin.
You see? That's what he means when he says he was talking about financial stuff. Why is he asking him about coming forward about the kennels, that he's a right to question him about his duty to come forward to tell him that he was at the kennels when that's a Fifth Amendment violation? Now, if Creighton Waters had worded the question saying, before you were charged with a crime, because he could talk about, because Doyle v. Alexander says is a 1976 case, which the Supreme Court said you cannot discuss someone's failure to come forward and talk about a crime, their failure to come forward and tell you about a crime, because that would basically poison the jury for the person relying on their Fifth Amendment rights. But in 1980, that line was was more clearly defined in a case I think called Anderson. What was the name of the case? Give me a second. It was not Doyle. It was Doyle v. Ohio. Was his 1976 case, and Jenkins v. Anderson was the 1980 case. And in Jenkins v. Anderson in 1980, the Supreme Court said that you can't come forward all of a sudden now and start saying, yeah, I was there, and your failure to give exculpatory evidence before you're charged can be used against you. In that case, the accused had committed murder and then tried twisting it into self-defense. So they said that bringing that up before the failure to disclose exculpatory testimony that the government, like such as the police, that were presented as trial as defense to government officials such as police in a prompt manner before the arrest, is something that the state's allowed to bring up. So based on Jenkins v. Anderson, what we could say is Creighton Waters has a right to come after Alex for not mentioning anything about the dog kennels until the moment that Alex is arrested. And that he could have come forward with that until that point. They could bring up. But anything that happens after his arrest, they cannot bring up. Which, to my mind, I'm not really crazy about that ruling, to be honest with you, but that's just the way the law is. So, when we're trying to figure out whether or not this Fifth Amendment violation, we got to work with what the guidelines are that's provided by the Supreme Court. So now we're trying to delineate here, based on his statement, what the judge has just ruled is because Alex said, we tried coming forward to you, and you didn't want to hear from Jim Griffin, now Creighton Waters has a basis to basically go after him. And the defense counsel is like, he's talking about the financials. To be fair, if you want to try and find against the defense, if you're leaning against the defense, you could say, well, the first part of that statement sounded a little bit more global. He ended up wrapping it into just, we want to come forward about the financials. But he said, we tried coming forward to you. We tried coming to you. We tried coming to you. And because we knew this wouldn't be, we had to come forward about the financials. Personally, like I said, I recognize that I'm sufficiently angered by this judge and by this and Creighton Waters to feel like I'm not impartial anymore. I've been like poisoned against them because I'm so frustrated with them. So I recognize that that's possible. But I do think that there's a fair argument to be made here. He definitely says financials towards the end of it, and it seems as if it's qualifying what the first part of his statement. And if it's just about the financials, there's no basis for him to imply that it would be a violation of his Fifth Amendment rights for Creighton Waters to come forward and say, we didn't hear until today that you were at the kennels. but we're 5 minutes of testimony away
Yes
from
or no question. Before yesterday,
from the Sixth Amendment
ever
issue.
bring up what you told this jury about that kennels to anybody in the prosecution or anybody in law enforcement?
No, I didn't have the opportunity to, Mr. Waters, because you would not respond to my invitations to reach out and tell you about all the things that I'd done wrong.
Now he's in a spot there, and it's a weird answer because he first said that he wants to come forward and talk about the kennels, about the financials, and now it's implying that if we come forward and talk about the financials, I would have also told you I was at the kennels, which honestly, between you and me, sounds completely disingenuous. I don't believe he would have come forward and talked about the kennels. I do not think so. I mean, based on everything we've seen from him, is he telling the truth? Yeah. If you ask me if I'm sitting on the jury, do I believe that if they would have accepted his opportunity to talk about the financials, that he would have voluntarily at that point brought up and mentioned that he was at the kennels? Maybe he's telling the truth. I have a hard time believing it. I'm just telling you, I personally don't believe it. I don't think it's true.
And to talk about bringing this to a head, to talk about bringing this to closure. I understand how many people I hurt. I understand.
And that's why he's trying to go back to the financials, because lying about the kennels is something that that's the worst part of this whole trial for him.
How angry my partners are and how hurt they are. And I understand how hurt these people that I stole money from are. I understand how hurt they are. And one of the things that I believe is getting past this may help.
Oh, and we should never lose sight of this either. Sled is guilty. Sled basically went in and lied about the gun load to the grand jury. I mean, just flat out told a complete non-truth, saying that they claimed that they found guns loaded because it was a mix of both buckshot load and turkey and bird load. I think turkey load. That was used at the crime scene, which is an unusual thing to do, to load your guns with two different types of pellet of shots like that. And they claimed to the grand jury, Agent Owen admitted that he claimed to a grand jury that we found guns on the property that were loaded in that fashion, which is just not true. He just completely made that up. And it's something that, it's an unusual thing. If you're on the grand jury, in that case, you know enough about guns to know that that's an unusual thing. It's almost, I would sort of compare it to like a stylistic type of thing. Not that this is a great analogy at all. It's a pretty terrible analogy that I'm about to give you. I recognize that fully. But it's like someone who uses, it's almost like someone who uses, let's say, bullets that are made in Guam, where no one else uses bullets made in Guam. And then these bullets came from Guam, and we found bullets from Guam that were also in his gun, that were also in their house. And it's like, oh my God, we haven't heard, I don't know anyone else in the state who uses bullets from Guam. And the murderer used bullets from Guam, and they found bullets from Guam in his and loaded into the rifles and shotguns in the murder in Moselle. That's very inculpatory. That makes it feel like that much more likely that those guns came from the house. But in point of fact, this unusual style of having a mix of buckshot and birdshot was not found anywhere in Moselle. So if anything, it should have been exculpatory. That you say like, hey, they're not the type of people who load their guns that way. So if they don't load their guns that way, and the people whoever shot Paul loaded his shotgun that way, you would think, well, that sort of leads you to think that maybe it wasn't them. But rather than using as exculpatory, they literally lied and said that's how we found guns loaded in Moselle. Completely made it up. And took a fact that should have been beneficial to the defendant and turned it on its head as a basis to get him indicted. That's how corrupt Sled was. That's how corrupt Agent Owen was. It's arguable that the only reason we're here watching this trial is because Sled lied to the grand jury, committed perjury, outright perjury, just to get him indicted.
help them get some closure. And so since at least January, I've been trying to sit down with y'all to talk to y'all.
And I just want to be clear. I really don't believe that he was going to come forward and claim that he was at the kennels. I don't buy it. I know everything we've seen from Alex. There's no reason to believe that he wanted to tell them about the kennels. The only reason he came forward about the kennels is because he saw that he was unwittingly caught. There was an audio recording of his voice there at a terrible time, and that there were going to be a ton of ear witnesses who were going to put him at the kennels. But if he thought that he'd get away with the sled never knowing that he was at the kennels, he would have. I don't think he ever would have come forward. Pam Ronning says, "Indeed, beauty sleep is necessary. See you tomorrow." It's not a 10-minute window though. He's got GPS data putting him in a different spot than her phone's final resting place. I know. That's what I was talking about before when I said that's a digital alibi, which I can't figure out. If I wanted to call him guilty, I can't figure out how he pulled that trick. How do you pull that trick of getting the? If I knew he did it, if I saw a video of him shooting, if we just had a video of him shooting Alex in the chest and then in the head, and then we saw this digital thing, I'd be like, how did he do that? I'd be like very curious without having an accomplice. I'm like, how did he manage to get that phone over there? It doesn't even make sense to me how he did it. As the prosecution proved, Richard Dreyfuss even has a license to practice law. He does look like Richard Dreyfuss. He looks exactly like Richard Dreyfuss. If the guy was in Jaws, he's breaking the laws. If the guy was in Jaws, he's breaking the laws. John goes until Good Logic hits 100K. Sub today. Amen. Thank you, my brother. You're the best. I think they were off because of him not being him. What? I don't know what that means. Gretchen the Great says, having Murdoch's Good Logic withdrawals, I'm so happy to see this. I'm glad. I appreciate that. Thank you. You can get even more of me if you sign up to Locals, which is goodlogic.locals.com. He speaks precisely, but his use of whatever slang he's using creates ambiguity. Perhaps. I mean, that could explain it. AM said before the murder charge, clear about financials. Yeah, okay. Whoa. Don't look up case law. This is an illegal analysis channel. I had to, just be clear about this thing because I never claimed to be a criminal defense attorney or prosecutor. So I'm walking into unknown terrain. And this is a very technical thing, which is a really important dividing line that we're stumbling across here in this case. And it's about to come up again within the next 5 minutes here, because before 217, there's going to be a claim of a Sixth Amendment violation. We already had the Fifth Amendment one. We're going to get the Sixth Amendment one coming up in just a couple minutes here.
And never, ever got a response to the multiple requests.
Multiple requests?
Yes, sir, multiple requests. I would ask about this
Murdoch.
every
Let's
few
ask
weeks.
this, sir.
Sir?
Did Mark Ball ever hear your story to the jury about the kennels until yesterday?
He never claimed that he told Mark Ball about any of this. Why? This is so irrelevant. It's a way of trying to show that he's shifty and hiding stuff. Like, why the hell would he go to Mark Ball and tell him that he was at the kennels? It's such a disingenuous question.
Buddy and law partner Mark Ball?
Listen, I haven't spoken to Mark Ball since I went to rehab.
And these were the same law partners that you were listening to the night of. Is that what you testified to this jury earlier? You testified to that earlier, did you not?
I don't understand your question.
Didn't you testify earlier that you were listening to your law partners on the night of the incident?
Was I listening to them?
Yeah, you testified to that. It's a simple question, sir.
I don't understand the question either. That he had counsel with him on the night? I don't know what he's asking him.
I'm sure I was. When are you talking about?
On June 8th, in the early morning hours, you testified to this jury that you were listening to them, but you never told them the Kendall story either, and they heard it for the first time yesterday as well, isn't it?
Okay. So this is also a Sixth Amendment violation. He doesn't have what he told Mark Ball as his attorney would be a Sixth Amendment violation for anyone to reveal it. Let's say he did tell them. Him asking this question is a Sixth Amendment violation that I think his defense counsel misses. He's basically asking him, they're sitting in as your counsel on the night of the murders, in the early morning hours of June 8th, hours after you discovered the bodies, and you're sitting in that police car, and you have your own law firm is sitting there as your counsel. You didn't tell them about it. How dare you ask that question? That's a Sixth Amendment violation right there. He has a right to counsel, and what he told them or didn't tell them is none of Creighton Waters or the jury's business. But he doesn't word it as they're sitting there as your attorneys. So it's a little bit murky, this whole thing here.
Correct.
Yes, that's the first time they heard it.
First time.
See, that's a Sixth Amendment violation right there that Jim and Dick missed, and they really should have been objecting to. What he told Mark Ball that night, if Mark Ball was serving as his counsel, what he told Mark Ball is no way in hell that should be a question that's asked by Creighton Waters.
That Ronnie Crosby ever heard that would have been yesterday.
I think Ron Crosby was another attorney there for him. This is a terrible thing that they're letting him get away with these questions. Terrible job by the defense counsel. This is like the worst moments of the trial for them.
If he was listening, that would have been the first time he heard
First
it.
time Johnny Carper ever heard that was yesterday.
I assume these are all attorneys who he's asking about, who served as his counsel.
Yes.
First time Danny Henderson, who was representing you in the boat case, ever heard that was yesterday.
Danny Henderson representing him in the boat case has nothing to do. Why the hell would he talk to the boat case, his boat lawyer, about what happened on the night of the murders? That makes no sense at all.
Yes, yesterday is the first time that I have said that openly. But that's not what you were asking me, Mr. Waters, but you go ahead,
First time your brother Randy heard that was yesterday.
if he was listening.
Why this is like to pin, there's a responsibility for him to tell these people this is asinine. It's really asinine. This is like, I would be screaming about the Sixth Amendment violations right here. But it's hard because it's like, it's so difficult. I mean, I'm not trying to pass judgment on Jim and Dick for this. It's a tough job. It's a tough job because you got to be sitting there and you're thinking about a dozen different things and whether this is, legal or whether this is proper or improper question. And you're getting shot down by the judge over and over and over again. It's a tough position. And you don't want to look as if you're trying to hide something from the jury also. It's a very, very, very tough position. It's a really tough call. But I think they have to be screaming Sixth Amendment violations here. It's easy for me to say this Monday morning quarterback or Sunday night quarterbacking on Friday's testimony. It's easy for me to do this, but sitting there in the moment, it's tough. The later one, I said objection right before I said objection because that one it smelled like objection. This one I think slid past me too. Not going to kid you. In the moment, there's so many things happening and things are happening so fast. It's tough. It's really tough.
And Mr. Waters, just to be clear, I was begging for a meeting with y'all to try to bring this to a close, to talk to y'all about everything up until the time that y'all charged me with hurting Maggie and Paul.
And he keeps saying that. Even like I said, I don't believe this. I don't believe he ever was going to come forward about being at the kennels. I'm sure he was asking for a meeting because he wanted to talk to them about the financials. But I don't think there's no reason for any of us to believe that he had any incentive or motivation or reason to come forward and talk to them about the kennels or that he would have changed that story before he got arrested. Because all it would do is just paint a big target on himself. I lied to you about this, and I'm coming forward to you about this now. It's hard for me to believe that he would have come forward. Is it possible he's telling the truth? Definitely. But if you're talking about credibility and what seems likely based on everything we've seen from Alex Murdaugh, I can't understand why anyone would believe that that's something that he would have, that if they had sat down with him and talked about the financials, he would have been like, oh, by the way, I was also at the kennels. I lied to you about that. It's hard to understand that he would have done that. It's hard to accept that that's something that would have happened. If I was sitting in the jury, I'd say, hell no, there's no way on earth we're convicting him. But if anyone said to me, my peers in the jury would say to me, you really think that he would have come forward and told them about that? I would have been like, no, there's no way. That wouldn't have happened. I'm just saying, I'm telling you real.
Now, after that point in time, I stopped, obviously.
That you were begging for a meeting and you.
You're asking me if it's his responsibility to do that. I'm not saying it's his responsibility to do that. I'm simply saying he's said now on the stand that I asked you for a meeting, implying that if he had gotten that meeting, he would have not just talked about the financials, but that he would have come forward about the kennels. And I'm simply saying, I don't think he's telling the truth about that. I think that's a lie. I don't think he ever would have done that. Unless he had heard the. In fact, from what I understand, and this you have to follow the Murdoch podcast thing, people. From what I understand, when he first heard claims that people were identifying his voice as being there, he denied it. So it's really hard to believe. It's really hard to believe. I'm simply saying, if you want to try to assess his credibility on the stand, I have a difficult time accepting that as being true.
But you admit information was never conveyed that you wanted to change your story after multiple interviews with law enforcement about what happened that night, including the most.
Mike, I want to be clear here. If you go back to the beginning of the stream, I spent the first 15 minutes of the stream saying there's no way in hell that he should be found guilty beyond reasonable doubt. And I went through a lengthy explanation as to what reasonable doubt is. And that really should be guilt beyond doubt. And the only reason we incorporate and modify that to reasonable doubt is that no one should be able to use the Martians. Maybe the Martians did it, and say, since maybe the Martians did it, we now have some doubt, and we're gonna free this person we believe is guilty. That's why we change it from beyond doubt to beyond reasonable doubt, so that we basically rule out the possibility of Martians committing the crime. But that the level is very, very high of beyond reasonable doubt. Very, very high. So, and that I felt that if the defense did nothing, if they rested, that he should have easily been acquitted, and that there's been tons of evidence, exculpatory evidence that's come in since then. So no one should take for a moment that I think there's any basis in the world for him to be convicted of guilt beyond reasonable doubt. Phone only tracks when specific apps are being used. Yeah, that's true. But why would his phone be logging 280 steps while her phone is logging 59? And why is it? And the other thing about the phone thing, this is the problem. This is the digital alibi. Those of you who are joining late, I'm going to have to keep pounding on this. We know where he was when he's starting up his car. And 4 minutes earlier, half a mile away, her phone is her phone with someone trying to access the camera in something that could not happen on its own. It had to be a button pressed or someone saying, "Hello, Siri, activate my phone." But there has to be someone trying to do something, and that was happening after we believe she's dead, half a mile away from him. That has to be a second person. And that's why I'm like, it's not just we're beyond reasonable doubt. I'm almost beyond reasonable doubt on innocence. Honestly, prosecutor sounds like someone trying to shift focus because he's caught. Kind of like you catch a kid stealing candy and they start talking about his sister broke a lamp. I agree with you. He does that a lot. A lot. He does that a lot. Every time something's not going well, all of a sudden everything goes in like a whole different direction of things that, like, now we're back here. Let's go back to the parts I'm asking you questions that I like your answers better. Before I get to any more of the super chats, I want to get to the part here, work my way through to the part of the testimony which is coming up within the next 5 minutes of testimony.
Most important fact of all, which is when the last time you supposedly saw your wife and son alive was.
I don't know exactly.
You like how he crouches down as he does that? The most important thing at all. Which I did say that you would think, just being a lay person, not a mental expert, that the last time somebody saw someone is something they would remember. And apparently he He does. He just didn't tell us when it was.
what was conveyed or not because, to you, because I wasn't part of it. All I know
Fair
is
enough.
what
You don't-
I was
Addressing
trying to
comment is not
do
solid points and
was
good
to
logic.
sit
Well,
down.
thank you, Mike. Okay, I want to be clear.
I understood to bring all this to a close that y'all would want me to sit down and go through all of these financial things, all of these things that I'd done wrong, and to try to bring that to a close, I was repeatedly trying to sit down with y'all.
So here, what I take from this is he's basically trying to say maybe I wasn't going to come forward on that part about the kennels, but it's not like I was trying to be evasive on all of these different things that you're trying to hold me up on. I was willing to come forward about the whole financial stuff. You guys just never want to hear from me. If his lawyers didn't object to some of the questions, can any of those be used during an appeal? I would tell you that the stuff they did not object to, they probably cannot appeal. I'd be very surprised that they're able to even raise them on appeal. It's good. It's a great question. There's other stuff that they raise in a minute about the Sixth Amendment that they can raise on appeal. But if you don't raise an objection, it's doubtful that they're going to have any chance to raise that on appeal. That's why it's such a killer that they didn't raise it. What's your over-under on deliberations? If you're asking about time, I actually reached out to Nick yesterday by text, and I was like, trying to get a schedule so I know like when I'm covering and when he's going to be back. And he told me that he's hoping to be back Wednesday, to be back streaming on Wednesday. And I basically told him, I said, my prediction on the timing on this is I expect the defense to rest tomorrow. We may get a couple rebuttal witnesses from the state, may or may not. I'm hopeful that we can wrap up closing statements by Tuesday and send the jury out for deliberations, which means Nick would get back just in time for that so coveted jury deliberations. I feel so bad for Nick. He carried the worst of this trial and basically left me like the tuchus of the duck to just salivate on. Oh, the fatty meat. And he's like, here you go, Joe. I'm going to sit here picking at the bones, trying to find any meat here. You just take this big, thick, juicy section here. Like, okay. I got Alex Murdaugh on the stand, the direct, the cross, some of the best witnesses, back and forth, blowing up testimony. And I may even get like closing arguments. It's like we could dissect that. And he's going to come in here. He's like, okay, so we're on day 3. I'm waiting for the jury to come back with the decision. Let's go back to the videotape. Oh, Rahmanas. After he sat through weeks and weeks of the most boring testimony about financial crimes and this person he robbed and that person he robbed, and let's bring this person in before. Now we need to see, let's have this person give their testimony outside of the jury's presence. Now let's watch it again in front of the jury. Oh my God. Poor Nicholas. Oh. So, yeah, I'm hopeful. My over-under, jury deliberations, I don't think before Friday. That's my answer to you. I don't think we're going to get a verdict before Friday. Anyone have issues with prosecutor or SLED? I think everyone has issues with prosecutor SLED. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate the support. All right, let's move forward here.
Reality is, Mr. Murdoch, is the reason why no one's ever heard that before is because you had to sit in this courtroom and hear your family and your friends, one after the other, come in and testify that you were on that kennel video. So you, like you've done so many times over the course of your life, had to back up and make a new story that kind of fit with the...
Let me tell you something. You get that juicy... You roast the duck. The tail's like the best part. Come on. Don't tell me that a roast duck, that the tail. I actually like, I like the breast of the duck is just like so good. That is so good. I'm a big fan of duck. I'm going to tell you. One of the most American things that my family does, because we don't keep many American customs, but one of the most American things that we do is Thanksgiving. My whole childhood, we would have nice big Thanksgiving dinner, bring in family, really that meant my great aunt. And every year we bring her and we bring out big turkey, and I hated turkey. Oh man, I couldn't stand turkey. I couldn't stand turkey. Like, oh, that's so bad. That's such a bad meat. And it turned out that like basically the only one in my family who liked turkey was my dad. So we morphed that into duck, and boom, went from the worst of poultries to the best of poultries. Like chicken we get all the time. But you go from getting like bad poultry to like the most amazing poultry, because duck, you have nice, juicy, well cooked, but still the juice is like there on duck. Oh, it's so good. I really want duck right now. If it's dead and cooked, then that's okay. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I understand how that can be clipped. I get it. I knew it when I said it. If you want a link to join me in here, I'm not going to be here much longer, but if you want a link to join me in here, I'm going to send you a link, obviously, for tomorrow when I'm here. But I'm covering now the part of the trial where you actually joined me. You joined me like 5 minutes right after this, right after this part right here. It's up to you.
Facts that can't be denied. Isn't that true, sir?
No, sir, that's not true.
Okay. You've done that over and over again over the years with all of this that we've been talking about, haven't you?
I've done what over and over again?
The second that you're confronted,
We're less than 3 minutes
facts
away
that
from a
you can't
Sixth Amendment
deny,
violation. We covered the
you
fifth
immediately
one.
come up with a new lie. Isn't that correct?
Mr. Waters, as we've established, I have lied many times, but I can't sit here and tell you that, what are you talking about, facts that I can't deny? That I would disagree with that proposition that you're putting out, that was what I did all the time, but.
This is where he starts sounding a little bit like Bill Clinton or like Aaron from Primal Fear. Mr. Waters, I don't understand. You know exactly what he means. You know exactly what he means. And it's true. It's true. Like all addicts, when you're cornered, you fess up. And if you're not cornered, you're not going to fess up. And that's what he's dealing with here. To me, I'm like, you know, it's like, I did not have sex with that woman. That, if you saw Primal Fear, I think it was Primal Fear. Was that it? It was Primal Fear? Not the one, not Cape Fear. That was with that crazy libtard, the Italian guy. No, the one with Ed Norton, Primal Fear. Great movie. Yeah. I don't know. That's what he's doing here. That's exactly what he's doing.
In doing that, I admit again that I've lied to people that trusted me.
De Niro, that was it. Yeah, Cape Fear with De Niro.
So we can agree that the prosecution and law enforcement and so many of your friends and family heard for the first time your story about the kennels yesterday after all these weeks of testimony. Can we agree on that?
That law enforcement, my partners, and my friends heard me say that for the first time. Yes, I agree with that.
When I'm watching this review, I'm really feeling like he's doing the stuttering to buy himself time. I'm being real with you. Again, not guilty, and I don't think he killed him. But I think that's how he's buying himself time.
Would you agree with me? That your own lawyer was repeating your story that you were at home napping as late as November of 22 on national television.
That's the question. That's the Sixth Amendment violation. This is where we're getting.
I don't know.
What the hell are you talking about November 22? Your own lawyer's repeating what you're saying about the kennels in November of 2022. So 4 months ago, your own lawyers is repeating that. What's his source? A Netflix show or some sort of documentary that came out in November 2022, which is ridiculous because it was filmed. It was a recording of Jim Griffin that I think was from like a year earlier.
No, in jail, we don't get newspapers, and the TV we have is limited, so.
So your own lawyers, at least as late as November 22, didn't know this story.
Crap, lie, BS, garbage. Not true. Assumes facts not in evidence because there's no way we know what the hell Jim said in November 2022. That's not before the jury here. There's no reason that this question should be asked. How do you even know? How does anyone know what his lawyers said in November 2022? What the hell is what's going on here? What is going on here?
That you've told to this jury after 5 weeks of your family and friends coming in and saying, yeah, that's him on that video.
I don't know.
Objection, Your Honor, violates attorney-client privilege communication. Totally improper. Totally improper.
Yes, sir. Response.
He has brought up his communications with counsel, and now that is fair game, Your Honor.
So the response is he's brought up his communications with counsel. When did that happen? When did he bring up his communications with counsel? No, he didn't bring up his communications with counsel. He never hid behind that. And what does that mean? Anytime he ever spoke to an attorney, you brought up his communication with counsel. You brought up, when did you tell him this? When did you tell him that? That's complete BS too. That never happened. You kept saying on the night of the thing, did you tell him? Did you tell Mark Ball that you were at the kennels? Did you tell him? No, you brought it up. He didn't bring it up. That was the violation that was a Sixth Amendment violation that I'm saying that Jim Griffin missed earlier. That was not brought up by the defendant. That was brought up by the state. So that's a completely BS thing. And the judge doesn't even use what he says as a basis for overruling the objection. Listen to what the judge says.
His communications through counsel with, or alleged communications with the prosecution.
He didn't.
There's no attorney-client privilege to national television interviews.
What? Where's there a national television interview? What are you talking about? What the hell is going on here? What the heck is that? Who says there was ever a national television interview? It's like he's just like making stuff up here. And is it something he said to his attorney in a national television interview? Did his attorney hold a national interview in November 2022? Because I don't think that happened. There was a documentary which dropped in November 2022 with things that were recorded like a year earlier. This whole thing is outrageous. This to me is such a terrible, terrible, terrible violation. Terrible violation of attorney-client privilege, assuming facts not in evidence. It's like, this is a circus. This is an embarrassment. I can't understand how anyone can say this is justifiable. It's ridiculous. This makes no sense to me at all.
The objection is overruled.
Where did he? Was that in the trial? Where? Oh, was it on The View? Did I miss it on The View? As usual. This is terrible. It's really terrible. To me, that's his strongest claim for whatchamacallit. Now, the problem that I don't like is later on when he goes into the whole, when he cites Doyle, that's really more about the Fifth Amendment issue, not the Sixth Amendment issue, which is what he does later on.
Are you waiting for me to answer, Mr. Waters, or did I answer?
I think the point's made.
All right, sir.
Lean on your lectern there.
You said you were unaware of that national television interview, is that what you said? You were
Unaware of what national television interview?
The one where your lawyer repeated that story as late as November of 2022. Your story that you were actually home asleep at the house.
What are you?
The only national,
Where is this? When did this happen? When did this happen? What does this mean? Alex brought it all in. When? When did that happen? What trial were you guys watching? I watched every minute of him testifying. When did he bring this in? I don't understand what you're talking about. Oh, it was Good Morning America. Oh, okay, that would explain it. I don't get it. Is there anything in this trial to let us know that there was a national thing? That, like, I just don't understand this. So if he did it on the Today Show, if he went on the Today Show, that would be something that has to be testified about, so we know that otherwise you're assuming facts and not in evidence. Maybe that Today Show was filmed 6 months earlier. I don't know, but you don't know. What I do know is nobody in this trial knows anything about it because it's never come up before. That's what we call assumes facts not in evidence. That doesn't even mean assumes facts not in evidence doesn't mean it's untrue. It means as far as this courtroom knows, it's not an established fact. It's not even been alleged by anybody. It has to be brought in there. You can't, as a prosecutor, come in here and just start saying, well, Joe Neerman has a channel called Good Logic. Is it true that you didn't deny to Joe Neerman Good Logic anything about you? You never went to Joe Neerman Good Logic? It's like, how do you have to establish that Joe Neerman is associated with Good Logic for the jury in order to ask the question? It's not a question of whether or not the fact is true. It's not before them.
TV ad that I'm aware of is, program is one that Mr. Griffin was involved in, are you referring to like a Dateline something?
I'm talking about HBO.
Okay, HBO.
Now we're on HBO.
So, yeah, I am aware of that. And what I believe the case to be is that I believe that when that was in its works, that Mr. Griffin made those statements sometime substantially before November of 22, as early as around the very beginning of 2021.
Well, let's talk.
At least what I understand to be the case.
Which would be a relevant thing, but here you just had... So now it's like he has to try and disprove when that statement was made by his lawyer. This is, and you're implying that he was still lying. What conversations he was having with his lawyer that's reflected by his lawyer's statements as recently as November of 2022. That's the problem, and he just basically testified about that to the jury, where there's no one who got on the stand and properly brought that evidence before the jury. That is the issue here. In case any of you are confused about that or think I don't know the facts. I understand enough about how the law works and how trials work to tell you that if it's not been testified before this jury, it is thoroughly improper for a prosecutor to get up there and start making these claims about facts and about what's known or what has happened when it hasn't been attested to by anybody who was under oath. And particularly because if that person had gone under oath and said, hey, I watched an HBO special about the Murdoch trial, and I saw Jim Griffin get up there saying that he was not even at the kennels that night, and that's what he was saying in November 2022, and then the follow-up question would be like, really? So when was that filmed? Oh, It wasn't November 2022. But instead, we have this schmuck standing up there in front of his lectern, basically claiming that that's when that as recently as November 2022, Jim Griffin here, your own attorney, thought that you never went to the kennels, which it wouldn't be anyone's business if you did. Like, there's so much wrong here. It's just offensive. It's noxious.
All right, let's talk some more about your testimony from yesterday.
All right, so that was really what I wanted to get to. I think we covered that. I just want to see if I can pull up here quickly. I think I can get it here. When they had the objection being heard by and going on the record in front of the judge. Did I miss it?
I don't
Didn't
believe
miss
that I
it.
did.
That's not it. Where was it? Give me a moment. Let's see if I can find it here. If I can't find it quickly, we're going to skip it. Here it is.
And welcome back to Law and Crime, everybody. Michael Black.
Mr. Griffin, you wanted to put something on the record?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. During cross-examination of Mr. Murdoch, he had testified that in relation to the financial crimes, that he had tried to meet with the Attorney General's office, and that on multiple occasions, and that he had, from the get-go, had always been willing to sit down with them. He was specifically talking about the financial investigation and the charges which he received as a result of those investigations. Following up to that questioning, that answer, Mr. Waters then went to Mr. Murdoch's testimony and the information he provided about being down at the kennel, and he said you had never provided that information to law enforcement and other people until today or yesterday. And Your Honor, that is a direct violation of Dole v. Ohio, where the Supreme Court said that cross-examining the defendant about his failure to have told an exculpatory story after receiving Miranda warnings at the time of his arrest is a due process violation. The court goes on to say the defendant's post-arrest silence cannot be used against him, violates due process. And that's exactly what happened on cross-examination. So I want to make clear the grounds for our objection. Also would like to move to strike the question, strike the answer, and get a curative jury instruction that they are not to consider any failure of the defendant to come forward with exculpatory information after his arrest relating to the murder charge. Thank you.
Mr. Waters.
Yes, sir, Your Honor. Clearly, this defendant has given statements on multiple occasions, and that operates as a waiver under Doyle. Additionally, my question was not so limited, as Mr. Griffin says, and it was, in fact, the defendant who made a point of saying that he had repeatedly tried to talk and put that in issue, at which point...
Nope. He said about the finances. Now, he did, like I said, and that's why that's why I listened to that clip 3 times with you guys. 3 times, because I said, if you listen to just the first half, it does sound broad. It sounds broad. That he's like, basically says, I tried to come to you because I knew that until I came to you and sat down to you, and in the whole time that until I was arrested for the murder, I tried talking to you about, because I knew it couldn't be rectified until I sat down and talked to you about the financial crimes. but it was in the context of he was just being asked, he was just being baited by Waters saying, oh, here's another time he changed his story. Here's another news story. Here's another news story. He's like, you keep saying I have a new story. I tried talking to you. I tried coming forward to you because I knew that until I come forward to you and until I talked to you that and I tried doing this until you came forward, until I was charged for the murder here. But after I was arrested, I was tried to talk to you about the financial crimes, and you never wanted to listen to us. Now, and he said, and that's when he started questioning. You never came forward about the kennels. You're lying. That single time that I came forward. So it's a little amorphous there. He did finish. And to my mind, as I said, he was explaining with the second half what he meant in the first half. To me, in my interpretation. But I could see an appellate court saying, the first half of that sounds like he's talking generally, and then he's being specific at the end, but that general part in the beginning could have been interpreted by a jury as him claiming that he wants to come forward and talk about the kennels, and that's why Waters has a right to question him on that, because he opened the door by his inartful wording. I'll also go one step further and say that afterwards, during the 5 minutes afterwards, when he was questioned on it, so he implied that if he came forward and talked about the financials, that he also would have talked about the kennels and clarified that. What the appellate court does with that, I don't know. But this is complete garbage, what Waters is about to say, that the judge is going to swallow.
This was directly responsive to what he brought up, and additionally, this was also, all that was discussed were public statements of his counsel, who was an agent on his behalf and attributable to him. So there's no Doyle violation here. If Mr. Murdoch had claimed his right to silence from the beginning and had kept that throughout, then the state would be precluded from commenting on the exercise of his right to remain silent. But one thing we know about Mr. Murdoch is he has not remained silent at any point during this process, and he's the one that brought up this false claim that he had been begging to tell the kennel story, when in fact he did not do so.
He never said he was begging to tell the kennel story. He never said that. That he definitely did not say. That's very clearly not true. Not until he was pushed into it by Creighton Waters after the judge allowed him to continue down that line. That is completely bogus.
Yesterday.
Doyle primarily addresses the issue of post-arrest silence. If an accused is silent following an arrest, then it's improper to comment on the post-arrest silence. It does not allow an accused or a person who's suspected to give contradictory information, or to voluntarily give a statement, or to voluntarily give a misstatement, as has been acknowledged here.
That's not what the whole thing was about, though. See, he's completely missing the point, which is a separate thing, which is that's a separate issue as far as pre-arrest rights to mislead. That's not what really. He's completely sidestepping the entire question here, because it's a matter of not what did he say, what did he not say. Can he be questioned about his silence? And the judge isn't even really addressing that. He's basically saying, well, Doyle doesn't give him a right to lie to the police, which is true. Doyle's really silent on that whole issue. It doesn't have anything to do with that. But the question is, can he be questioned about his failure to come forward under Doyle? And the problem that I have is this. If Creighton Waters had limited his question saying, all the way up until the time of your arrest, you never came forward and told anyone you were in the kennels, that would have been totally kosher. That's fine under Doyle. But the implication saying you never came forward until today, until just this week, no one knew anything about it, that's where there's a Doyle violation. That right there is a Doyle violation. And the judge is wrong on that, in my opinion. The only explanation would be if he now, the way to get around Doyle is if in fact he was coming forward and claiming that he tried to come forward post-arrest, which is not something he ever claimed he did. It's not something he ever claimed. And that to me is really a problem. It's really a problem. So, and I definitely think the Sixth Amendment, look, I think that the defense counsel missed a couple of times they should have objected to the right to counsel and a violation by questioning him about what he said on the night during the wee early morning hours after the arrest, after the murders, and what he told his own attorneys then. That I do think that his counsel waived that by not objecting to that. And he's saying, you never told them that you went to the kennels. That's not anyone's business what he told them or did not tell them. That's nobody's business. If they were sitting in there as his counsel, that's Sixth Amendment right to counsel. No one should ever know what the hell he told them. Maybe he did tell them about the kennels. And it's wrong. The whole thing was wrong. But I think their failure to raise that during that section of questioning is probably going to preclude the defense from raising that on appeal. That's my estimation on it. So there you go. We broke all that down. I think they have a decent shot on the Fifth Amendment, decent shot on the Sixth Amendment if he loses. But when you're appealing, that means you're a loser. So appeals are for losers. Is a common for judge forbid jury taking notes? I think it depends on jurisdiction. I think it really depends on the jurisdiction. So some do, some don't. It really depends on the judge. There's no interview in evidence doesn't matter or something. There's no TV interview in evidence doesn't matter or something. Yeah, well, it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't be brought in. That was my point all along there, Joe. A juror would be removed for talking about HBO. I would change that to a juror should be removed for talking about HBO. But here we have a prosecutor talking about HBO, which is asinine. It's asinine. The whole thing is wrong. On appeal, only the transcript is used. I expect the appeals court to go with the judge's interpretation. Wrong, but most likely, no. I don't know that I don't think this might be a de novo thing. A lot of times it's abuse of discretion standard, which means we're going to give some leeway to the judge. On this one, I don't know about that. This is not just like objection hearsay. This is constitutional rights. Constitutional rights tend to be reviewed de novo. So if it's an egregious enough error that the appellate court feels that this tainted the jury and led to his conviction, that might be an element that and they might come to a conclusion that, look, we think this was terrible error, but not enough that it caused the conviction, and accordingly we're not going to overturn a conviction. That could happen too. My understanding. So, yeah. Anyway. But you're correct that all they use is the transcript. They're not going to sit here going through this and looking at the ridiculous faces that Creighton's making. Look at him sitting there brooding like an angry little puppy. You can see his frustration with his crossed arms. Even when he's winning even when he's getting favorable decisions, he's still sitting there because he's so frustrated. All right. Well, that's our show for tonight. Tomorrow morning at 9:30, I'm going to be streaming the trial. Do not be late. I'm going to be setting up a link for that very shortly. So set your alarms. I know I'm going to be setting my alarms. And I'll be here, God willing, at 9:30 as we pick up with hopefully the last day of defense. And maybe both sides resting. Maybe, could be. Get to closings on Tuesday. Here we go. Coming down to the home stretch. Let's go. All right. I will catch you all in the morning. Till then, take care of yourselves. And as always, tell your friends, tell your family. Watch the trial. Good logic. Watch it here. Share the link. Godspeed.